situation. I will say this. The cop was following the procedure.
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to You Made It Political. Today is Friday. It's the weekend. Got a lot of exciting stuff going on this weekend. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week. It's over now. Go out, relax, enjoy yourselves. We all know we need it, especially after what's happened this week. So much winning on the Republican front. CNN busted for reporting once again a boatload of fraudulent stories, all in the name of ratings, and we've got them caught on camera. If you guys haven't seen the video yet, I'm going to show you that now. CNN director has been busted for going on camera, although he didn't know it, but he's been busted on camera for admitting to jacking up the COVID-19 numbers, all for ratings. I mean, come on, are you guys surprised? We know CNN is a fraudulent network. We know it's a conspiracy source, hence the reason we call it Conspiracy News Network. So we're going to get into that video in just a second. We're also going to discuss Republican states that are winning all over the country, lifting mask mandates, banning mask mandates from ever being applied again. So we'll get into that. We'll also discuss certain states who are also requiring permission from parents before their children are allowed to even learn or discuss gender identity in schools. I think it's great. I think the parents have to get involved in this, and they finally get a say. We'll discuss what states are doing that. We'll also get into what Governor DeSantis is doing down in Florida with his new anti-riot bill. So much winning going on from Republican governors, Republican states. It's too bad these Democrats continue to destroy their states, and for those of us who live in it, are stuck with them. But first, let's head over to Twitter today, where we talk about what's going on with CNN and why there is outrage amongst the journalism industry. So before we get into the story, a little bit of a backstory here. So for those of you guys who don't know, this is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. CNN. So first of all, James Khalif has done, for those of you guys who don't know, there's been Project Veritas. There's a journalistic news source called Project Veritas. Okay, and just pull up his name in a second for you all to see. But James O'Keefe, the CEO or the owner of Project Veritas, he sent his team in. Project Veritas, for you guys who don't know, they uncover some really deep underground information that you will never see being reported on CNN or Fox News or any of the mainstream news networks. So Project Veritas, they go in and they uncover all of the omission of facts or the fraud, and they report real stories, real journalism here. And we'll get into what happened with Project Veritas in just a second. Twitter has shut them down. They've banned them, and we'll get into that story in a second. But they reported a story of the CNN director admitting that they've engaged in propaganda, all in the sake of ratings. I'm not surprised. We know CNN omits facts. We know they support the liberal left and do everything they can to drive that narrative. But what you're about to see is disgusting, and it's very shocking. So we'll take a look at the CNN director admitting the network engages in propaganda, and we'll hear what he has to say about what they've been doing with the COVID numbers, all in the name of increasing the ratings. Let's take a look.
I think we got him through this term. We would always show shots of him jogging, him in aviator shades, and like you paint him as a young geriatric.
We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. You know, we were
That's I think that's propaganda. Look what we did. We got Trump out. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of like fear, like climate?
Yeah, fear sells. Fear sells. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
And what is it you do?
Technical director. It's one step down from director. It's going to be our focus. Our focus was to get Trump out of office. Without saying it, that's what it was. Trump was hand was shaking or whatever, that he was losing it. He's unfit. We were creating a story there. So that's I think that's propaganda.
So I'm standing here at 30 Hudson Yards. Warner Media is in right there. That's CNN's corporate headquarters. We're in New York City. Jim Sciutto just walked out. Funny enough, I asked him about the videos we have just obtained of a CNN director, Charlie Chester, on tape. For years, we've heard that CNN is the most trusted name in news, but a CNN director is on tape telling us that they're propaganda, helping a certain political candidate, employees admitting what we've always known to be true. This time, it's on tape.
Look what we did. We got Trump out. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out. I really don't think so.
Oh, really? I think if COVID hadn't happened, it wouldn't have mattered what covered, and Trump would still be in office.
I believe. I came to CNN because I wanted to be a part of that.
So Chester says that CNN is responsible for getting Trump out of office and helping Biden through his term. Listen to this tape. Chester and Hoffman believe CNN managed to get Trump out of office, their words, and Chester calls CNN propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, like Trump, we did it. Like when Trump was, I don't know, like his hand was shaking or whatever. We brought in like so many medical people to like all tell a story that like it was all speculation. That he was like neurological damage, like that he was losing it. He's unfit to, whatever. We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. So that's I think that's propaganda. We had nothing else to run with at that time. We were like just taking shots off the bow, just hoping something would hit.
I guess I have a confession. I worry about Biden and his health, I guess.
Your news health?
What? I said Biden, our president. Like I want to just like literally, I just want to like take care of him and make sure he's okay. Like
he's definitely the whole thing of him running during the entire run for the campaign, showing him jogging was obviously a deflection of his aid, and they're trying to make it like I'm healthy.
Is that what we did? I don't know. Like, what do you mean?
We would always show shots of him jogging, and that I'm healthy, blah blah blah, and him in aviator shades, and like you paint him as a young geriatric. I like so many arguments about like my dad be like, you're voting in Kamala Harris because he's gonna die in the presidency, and I'm like, that could die.
Right, I don't think he's gonna
but
die.
I'm okay with that.
Right.
I'm okay with that. I think she could be
probably
a bitch.
be better, but
She probably could be a bitch in like a board meeting, and you'd hate her as a boss, but she's real and better than what we've had.
Right.
Regardless.
Yeah.
I don't see. I think we got him through this term.
Even after Biden was sworn in, CNN still seemed to maintain a bias in the reporting, according to Chester.
And then so there are complaints that like we're not covering that Biden tripped up the stairs. Oh, did you? Like we talked about it briefly, but
you talk about that briefly. You don't make that a huge story.
Okay, so but the fact that we talk about the Trump tripping is a bigger nuance. It's a nuanced conversation because that's a sign.
Did we harp on Trump tripping? I think we talked about it a little bit. As long as we talk about it a little bit with Biden, then I think we're
But like we didn't cover it all on Dawn. Like we didn't talk about it. Whereas if it had been Trump tripping up the stairs.
So this video clearly goes on and just busts the CNN technical director and exposes them and gets them on camera admitting that they're all about propaganda. It then later goes on to discuss things like COVID-19. Here's the COVID part right now. Let's take a listen.
They're going to latch onto it. They've already announced in our office that once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate, like global warming, and like that's going to be our next like I don't know, like what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be our focus. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it's just going to be like he's got his council, that will beat to death. But that one's got longevity.
Who's that? Is that Zucker?
Zucker, yeah. I imagine that he's got his council and they've all like discussed like where they think
So that's like the next
pandemic like story like that will beat to death. But that one's got longevity. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a definitive ending to the pandemic, or like it'll taper off to a point that it's not a problem anymore. I think it's going to take years, so they'll probably be able to milk that for quite a bit.
So climate change overload.
Be prepared. It's coming. Stories like right now, we had an inside track right now where 2 stories are going to be pushed. Climate change is going to be the next COVID thing for CNN.
So you guys get the point. CNN is a total propaganda news. They're not even considered real journalistic news. They're propaganda. They're already getting ready to push climate change for the next 4 years, and that's what their story is going to be, to try and push Biden through a second term, or whether Kamala Harris takes over and get her into a second term. So they are controlling the narrative. There's no doubt about it. Project Veritas, they've gone in and they've busted the CNN technical director on camera, stating that all of this is just for show. It's all propaganda. So what happens? Well, clearly the Democrats completely lose their mind. They totally freak out. They can't believe that this is now out there for the world to see. CNN is losing their minds. What do? Well, the very first thing they do to retaliate is Twitter then goes online. Twitter comes on and suspends James O'Keefe, the CEO of Project Veritas. They've had enough of the truth. The suspension comes after O'Keefe tweeted videos exposing a CNN director. So we just saw the video of the director being exposed. Twitter then comes on and shuts down James O'Keefe's account. This is insane, people. There is no freedom of speech in America anymore. And we've seen this time and time again, where any conservative, whether it's a journalist, an influencer, a politician, gets too close to the truth, they shut the whole thing down. They shut it down just like that. Within seconds, his account was pulled offline. And it's disgusting. This isn't even hearsay. These aren't opinions. This isn't misinformation. This is straight up CNN technical director on camera getting busted for admitting CNN is a propaganda platform and that they intentionally control the narratives. And they will push these stories and beat them to death just to control the left maintaining power. And any conservative who gets in the way of this, any conservative who exposes the truth, they silence. They chuck them right off Twitter. So It's absolutely disgusting. We've seen it before. We saw it with President Trump. We've seen it with other conservatives. We see it time and time again. And I love what Donald Trump Jr. has to say about how the game really works here. Donald Trump Jr. then comes on. He takes to Instagram with this post here. Donald Trump Jr. said yesterday, in case you haven't figured out how it works by now, at CNN spreads propaganda to elect Democrats. And then Twitter runs interference to protect CNN. They're all on the same team. And that's exactly what's going on. They're all in cahoots with each other. They've all teamed up. They've ganged up. This is what they do. And it's up to us conservatives to keep exposing the truth. And a couple days ago, I showed you guys many clips that came from Andy No, who covers a lot of the Antifa and the BLM riots. And I knew the rioting was going to start the second the Dante Wright shooting happened. And I knew that CNN was going to call them peaceful protests because that's what they did all last summer. So this year, all of the journalists on the ground, the conservative, the right-wing journalists are there. They're prepared this time to expose BLM and Antifa for the domestic terrorist organizations that they really are. So they started covering all of the riots to the point where nobody even cares what CNN has to say anymore. CNN has to continue the propaganda narrative for their ratings, because without ratings, they collapse. Well, people are getting sick of it. Black Lives Matter is even getting sick of it. And I showed you a video a couple days ago of Black Lives Matter even saying, get the hell out of here. We don't want you guys here. You continue to make things worse. You're controlling the narrative. You're not actually reporting on the facts. You're manipulating the facts. You're omitting the facts. So it happens time and time again, to the point where Black Lives Matter is even furious with CNN. And we'll try to pull up that clip in just a minute for you guys to see. But everybody's caught on to the fraud that CNN is. Here's a video here. I'll show you guys here. BLM tells CNN they are making things worse. You all need to get up out of here. So here's Black Lives Matter actually slamming CNN, telling them to leave.
I'm going to try to sort of stand in the street a little bit. You look there. Now you can see. Now you can see.
Y'all be twisting up the story.
You want to talk to me? Do you want to talk to me? Okay, cool. No, don't take my mic, but we're cool. Okay. What's your name?
What's my name? My name is my name.
All right. So tell me what you think about what's going on here.
What I think about this is all the press and all the extra shit y'all do makes this worse.
You think so?
Yes. When people want to protest, they shouldn't do it in front of a fucking police courthouse. Shit like that. You get what the fuck I'm saying?
I want you to be careful. I want you to be careful. I really do.
What?
Of anything that can hit you. Of anything that can hit you. Look at all the stuff. Of this.
Of what?
Of this.
Do it look like I'm scared?
No, you don't.
Do it look like I'm scared?
You don't. You don't.
Exactly. Y'all need to get up out of here with all that twisting up the media shit.
Okay.
Real shit.
You don't know me, but we're going to get to know each other. That's what we're going to do.
Each other,
yes,
huh?
we are. We are. We are.
How you gonna know me?
We're gonna talk. I'm gonna share a number with you. All right, let's do it.
No, let's do it right here.
Let's do it.
So I love how this journalist thinks that she's gonna get to know this guy. She doesn't care about this guy. She can care less about any of them. CNN doesn't care about Black Lives Matter. They just want to control the story to get the entire country riled up once again, to then get all the liberals to buy into this crap so they can continue to push their Democratic narrative forward. And the same thing happens. And Black Lives Matter is even done with it. They've had enough. Everybody's had enough of CNN. Finally, everybody's exposing them. But God forbid you get a little bit too close to the truth, because as we know, once you start doing that, you are going to get suspended. You are going to get canceled, which is exactly what just happened yesterday to Project Vertigo. Twitter has suspended James O'Keefe's account. The suspension comes after O'Keefe tweeted videos exposing the CNN director. So we've seen the proof. We saw the documentary. Twitter doesn't like that, or that Project Veritas got a little bit too close to the truth, and that's what happens. You get shut out of Twitter. So we know the deal. It's another disgusting story, and it happens every single time, but there's too many of us now reporting the truth. Andy No, constantly, he's putting up video after video after video of BLM and Antifa rioting. Why? Because we need to make sure that we show the real story before Conspiracy News Network, CNN, actually shows you the fraudulent version, the version that omits the facts. And conservatives, Republicans, and independent, freedom-thinking journalists, we're winning this war because there's only one CNN. There's hundreds of thousands of Republican, conservative, freedom-thinking, independent journalists out there who are going to trump anything that CNN puts out there. And we're already seeing it. So I applaud these guys for exposing everybody, for getting to the bottom of this, and to continue to fight to show this country the disastrous situation that we're really in, and to show them the truth. In other news, guys, we got breaking. If you guys don't follow Breaking 911, you got to follow these guys. If you want to know what's really going on in America, follow Breaking 911. They're great. Forget CNN. I mean, Fox News even kind of, I can't figure out what direction Fox News even wants to go at time, although they are my go-to for mainstream media. If I'm going to listen to anybody, it's going to be Fox News. It's the only site that I can really try and get some sort of Republican or conservative view. But if you really want to know what's going on, Breaking 911 over on Twitter, they give you the real headlines. A couple really good headlines that I saw this morning, which I'm very excited about. We'll tackle the first one. I've had a little bit of an issue here with this whole gender identity thing. For those of you who live in New York, in my home state, we all know there's a Democratic senator who is pushing sex ed in as early as kindergarten. They want to start talking about gender identity in the classroom. Well, when that happened, I had a huge issue with it. I was furious over the situation, and I did a live on that, voicing my disgust and concern over it. So what's good to now see is other states are now coming online, and they're saying, no, this is not going to be allowed in the classroom. So Arizona, the Arizona House and Senate have passed a bill that would require parental permission for a child to be taught anything about sexual orientation and gender identity. So I saw this and I was thinking, thank God other states are stepping up. Thank God that they're now voicing their concerns about the fact that these children, they don't need to be taught gender identity as early as kindergarten. This is not, I don't think it's an appropriate discussion for the classroom. And apparently the Arizona House and Senate have passed a bill that now requires parental permission for a child to be taught anything about sexual orientation and gender identity. So I think it's phenomenal. Guys, I'm looking at some of your comments. Linda, from the video we showed a minute ago, Linda says, how can anyone have any respect for CNN? From here on, I'd believe more in the TV show The Twilight Zone than in anything out of the mouths of CNN fakers. Absolutely right. Clearly now we've seen it. And it's just good to see that you guys are kind of thinking the same thing here. So it's a great comment, Linda. Thank you. Guys, voice your comments here. I'll be reading them up. I'll be pulling them up and reading them as we get to it. So it's great that the Arizona House and Senate have passed a bill that kind of requires, or that does require, parental permission for a child to be taught anything about sexual orientation and gender identity. So what do the people have to say about this? Let's take a look. You'd think like everybody would be on board with the situation. Surprisingly, they're not. The very first comment I see here, and this is crazy for this person to even think like this. Sid the Whistle says, why do so many people think this is good? Require permission. Why do we think that requiring permission is good? Sid, are you freaking out of your mind? First of all, we're talking about teaching 5-year-olds. I mean, my 4-year-old is about to go into pre-K. Next year, he'll be in kindergarten. I don't want my 5-year-old learning about gender identity right now. It's not that I'm against gender identity, although I'm a firm believer that there's only two genders, male and female. I don't care how you spin it. That's the deal. Like you can manipulate it, you can twist it, you can come up with a story all you want. There's only two genders, male and female. I want to be the one to explain that to my son first, before the liberal teachers get a hold of him and totally twist his mind with all this other stuff that I'm not okay with him learning. So I agree. There needs to be some sort of parental permission. I don't want my kid learning this right now until I feel my son is old enough to be able to have these conversations. So I agree with Arizona. Sid the Whistle clearly does not agree that you and I, as the parents, should have any influence whatsoever in what the teachers do when it comes to sexual education and gender identity with our kids. So Sid doesn't like this. Sid says, why do so many people think it's good, requiring permission? What the hell does a straight white Christian couple know about sexual orientation and gender identity? Can you believe this person? He's questioning what a straight white Christian couple knows about sexual orientation. A straight white Christian couple knows a lot about sexual orientation. Sid, it's not rocket science, buddy. There's only two genders, male, female. Okay? I'm okay with transgender. I'm definitely okay with gay and lesbian. I mean, I have a lot of gay and lesbian friends. Tons of gays and gay and lesbian follow my show. Follow me personally. They're great people. Transgenders, great people. Where I have a problem is at what age we allow our teachers to start discussing this. That's where I have a big problem. And I think that the school needs to kind of back off. Sid clearly doesn't agree with me. Sid says, shouldn't education be decided by the educators? No, Sid, it shouldn't anymore. We need to go back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's what we need to go back to. Because I've lost all faith in our education system. The second that they started suspending kids in high school for marching through football fields with Blue Lives Matter signs and the United States flag, as soon as they started suspending kids who show patriotism throughout school grounds, that's where I lost all faith in our education system. As soon as they started forcing sexual education on our kindergartens, and they were going to now let the curriculum dictate when they're going to talk to our kids about gender identity, I lost all faith on our education system. So no, I personally have zero faith in our education system right now, and I demand, and I'd like to see more people step up and start to demand that educators get back to reading, writing, arithmetic, and leave everything else out of the classroom, including critical race theory. I want nothing to do with that in the classroom. Or if you're going to allow critical race theory in the classroom, then you better allow patriotism. You better allow the other side of the story. The reason I don't want critical race theory and Black Lives Matter being taught in the classroom is because it's politics. You can't teach that without taking a side today. And it's sad. It's sad that we've made racism a political matter. Or it's sad that politics has hijacked racism and it's become a political matter. So if you're going to be teaching critical race theory and Black Lives Matter and racism, you better teach the other side. But if you only allow one side, well, I'm sorry. You're now manipulating the kids. You're not educating the kids. You're indoctrinating the children. Because it's supposed to be critical thinking at the end of the day, not telling you what to think. I'd be curious to know what you guys think about the situation. Please drop a comment in the comments and I'll pull them up. I'd love to know what you guys think about the fact that we are now pushing critical race theory on our children and we're now forcing them to learn about gender identity and sex education as early as kindergarten, but not in Arizona. Arizona's put their foot down. The Arizona House and Senate have passed a bill that would require parental permission for a child to be taught anything about sexual orientation and gender identity. I applaud them. I absolutely applaud these guys. I think it's great. Another awesome story here today, guys. Idaho. Add Idaho to the list. Idaho House passes a bill banning government face mask mandates. So I think this is excellent. I think it's great that more states are now joining the freedom movement of ditching the masks. Get rid of the mask. It's time that we get back to living our normal life. And I love that Idaho has now passed the bill. So it's not only that they're lifting the mandates, but they're now passing bills so these mandates aren't allowed to go back into the state. So what they're doing here is they're preventing the governor now from allowing the mandate ever again, which is great. I mean, the masks are ridiculous. We know they don't work. The masks are a total scam, and I'm just glad to see Idaho has now passed this bill banning the government face mask mandates. It's too bad they won't do that in New York. I'd love to see something like that happen in New York, because our own governor Cuomo has completely lost the plot, and he continues to lock us down, mask us up. He's now moving forward with the Excelsior vaccine passport, which is completely unconstitutional. And hopefully we'll be able to do something about that in the future. But right now, Democrats, states are just destroying our freedoms, destroying our liberties. And it's good to see that other Republican states are fighting back on all of it, including Governor DeSantis down in Florida, who continues to outlaw things like a vaccine passport. What do the American people have to say about the fact that Idaho House passes bill banning government mandates? Steve says 10% of the people in Idaho got COVID. Of those people who got COVID, 10% have died. I guess the government of Idaho doesn't care about the people who live there, so let's expect more outbreaks and more deaths. Actually, I don't believe that. I don't believe that 100% of people died who caught COVID. I don't believe that at all. If you go to the CDC, the numbers are a lot more in favor of people actually surviving COVID. So I'd seriously question Steve's comment there. I don't believe him at all. And I'm sorry, I don't believe that masks are the answer here. Because listen, the reason I know this is complete BS is because if you look at the CDC's website and you look at Florida, non-maskless state, they don't have mask mandate. You look at Texas, no mask mandate. Their number of COVID deaths are far lower than the likes of New York State and California, who have been masked up from the beginning and locked down. So right there, it tells me masks don't work. But we've beaten this topic to death. I've discussed it. I show you guys the stats in other shows. They don't work. I think this guy's he's just an idiot that he even claims that all 100% of the people who got COVID in Idaho have died. I'd like to see the data behind that one. Kenny says, let's go, baby. People are waking up. It's only been 15 months. Yeah, finally. It's like, when the hell is New York going to wake up? When is our own Governor Cuomo going to wake up and get these damn masks off and stop playing politics with our lives? Stop ruining our lives. I'd like to see that. The fight, though, is getting better in New York State. There's a lot more people joining that bandwagon, which is great. Ricky says Biden is not going to be happy. Seriously, screw Biden. I mean, this guy is like, Biden's so out of touch with reality right now that I don't think he even knows what coronavirus even is anymore. I mean, we all know the deal with Biden. He continues to forget where he is. I don't even know if Biden knows that he's president at this point anymore. Biden might be mad. Who cares? It's not up to Biden anymore. Okay? We're putting our foot down. Republican states are fighting back. No, thank you says, as it should. The government can suggest and warn people of dangers, but doesn't have that kind of power. They shouldn't have that kind of power. They never had that kind of power. We, the people, let them get away with it. And in the Democratic-run states, it's not going to end till we put our foot down and we end it ourselves. If you don't wear a mask, it's your choice. Don't be a dick and possibly put people at risk. But still, I like liberty more. And that's actually a great comment. And that's where I sit as far as this whole mask mandate thing is concerned. I'm the same way. If you don't wear a mask, it's your choice. Don't be a dick and possibly put people at risk. If somebody's really concerned and you want to have a little bit of respect and kindness and compassion for that person, and they ask you politely, listen, if you don't mind, I'm just very worried. Would you mind wearing a mask? Okay, I'm not going to be an asshole. I'm going to put the mask on. I'll be the first. Now, if that person comes at me like a raging asshole and screams and yells at me, I'm probably not going to put the mask on. Okay? Because you being scared of getting COVID from me not wearing a mask does not give you the right to be a raging dick. Okay, you still need to have some sort of compassion towards people, just like it doesn't give the right for businesses to get all on their high horse and be disgusting and rude to you. You still need to have some sort of respect for people, no matter what side of the fence you sit on. But I do agree with this guy. I think that you do need to, have some sort of compassion, but liberty needs to prevail. It always needs to prevail. Obviously, the left are going to be triggered. There's going to be a lot of triggered liberals out there. I'm sure that the Democrats in Idaho right now are sitting there kind of freaking out. And this is exactly what I would expect out of them on the fact that Idaho just banned masked mandates from ever being able to be implemented again. So I think it's phenomenal. And I think that more states will continue to follow Arizona's lead as far as them requiring permission from parents to allow their children to be taught gender identity and sexual education in the classroom now. I think that's great. I think it's also great that Idaho has now finally taken off the masks. And we'll expect more to see it. So we all know what's going on in Minneapolis right now, or Brooklyn Center with the riots. It's out of control. They're destroying their city. BLM, Antifa, they're at it again. The National Guard has finally been brought in, and it's because things are that out of hand. The Democrats have lost control. They've lost control of the Black Lives Matter movement. And for the first time ever, they're really scared about what's going to go on in these cities. They're really nervous, hence the reason they finally sent in the National Guard. Why didn't they send in the National Guard last year? All summer long. Trump wanted to send in the National Guard. They didn't want anything to do with it. They said, Trump, we don't want the National Guard. Do not send them in. We're good. We don't need it. So why all of a sudden is the National Guard being called into all these Democratic states? It's because the Democrats, for the first time ever, aren't pulling the strings. They're not in control. Black Lives Matter, their tune has changed. They're not following the Democratic narrative anymore. Black Lives Matter has gone rogue. They're on their own right now. They're now destroying the cities in all for what they claim is justice. And as you know, there's no excuse for that. You don't get justice by destroying your own cities. We saw it last year. We're now seeing it this year. This time, though, unlike last year, the Democrats have no control over telling them when to stop. This isn't about votes anymore. Last year, it was about votes. This year, you haven't heard a peep out of Kamala Harris. You haven't heard a peep out of Maxine Walters or Biden. It's almost like the administration has told the Democratic governors and politicians, you are not to talk about this. No more. We need to put an end to it once and for all. It's like, wait a second. What happened to let's get out there and cause chaos in the name of justice? What happened to Chris Cuomo going on record and saying, who said protests have to be peaceful? Where's all that rhetoric? Where's Maxine Waters right now cheering everybody on? Where's Kamala Harris bailing all of these criminals out of jail that are getting busted for riots? Well, they're nowhere to be seen. It's because the Democrats are freaking out that they aren't the ones controlling the shots here. And Black Lives Matter doesn't care. They're done with the Democrats. They know they've been used. They know that it was never about justice as far as the Democrats are concerned. It was always about votes from the very beginning. So BLM's gone rogue. Antifa has now moved in to Brooklyn Center in Minneapolis, near Minneapolis, to now join the riots. The city's getting burned to the ground. We now hear of a 13-year-old in Chicago who was shot yesterday. He had a gun. Whether he had the gun at the time of the shooting is a different story. Chicago actually protests, but they kept it very peaceful last night. 40 to 50 people took to the streets in Chicago to protest the police killing of a 13-year-old who was roaming the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning with a gun. There's body cam footage. I'm sure we'll learn more. I'm sure the police had a very good reason to shoot the 13-year-old. I know it's sad. It sucks that a 13-year-old lost his life last night, but what the hell is a 13-year-old doing out roaming the streets at 2 in the morning with a gun? These are the situations that keep putting the black community in this position. So Chicago handled it well. Minneapolis is out of control. Governor Ron DeSantis has come out now and said, you dare try this in Florida, and we will throw your ass in prison and impose extremely harsh penalties on you guys. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' staff said Thursday that he will approve an anti-riot bill that would impose harsher criminal penalties on violent protesters once finalized. And that's what we have to do. Guys, we cannot turn America into a lawless country. We have to have law and order in America. That doesn't make me a racist, okay? Wanting due process does not make me a racist. It just makes me a law-abiding citizen. And I posted this yesterday on my own wall because I was sick of every time I said, listen, let's just give it a minute. Let's just wait and see what happens in the Dante Wright situation. Let's let due process prevail here. Oh, well, you better believe the backlash that I got. Oh, you're just a racist and white supremacist. And I was like, hold on a second. What does white supremacy and racism have to do with due process? But I was raked through the coals and murdered over on CNN's social media site because I love to go in there and kind of get the debate going a little bit. The liberals don't like it, and they just crucify me for any opinion that I have that obviously goes against their narrative. And I'm thinking very logically, which is what I do every single time. Well, the left don't like logic. The liberals, they don't like logic. They like emotion. They like irrational thought processes. They like to be impulsive and jump the gun because CNN tells them to. So whenever a Republican or a conservative goes into CNN and starts tackling a debate with logic, well, you better believe heads explode. So I wrote yesterday, I said, just because I believe in due process doesn't mean I'm racist. Just means I want justice to prevail here. And that's the same as the Derek Chauvin case that's going on right now with George Floyd. Listen, I don't know if the knee on the neck was an illegal move. I don't know if it actually was what killed George Floyd. All I know is that let due process sort out the information. Let's have a fair trial. And if the procedure wasn't allowed and he knelt on the neck and the neck actually killed George Floyd, then yes, that would probably constitute as murder. But if the procedure was allowed and George had enough fentanyl in him to kill a horse and the knee on the neck wasn't actually what killed him, then Derek Chauvin probably shouldn't get first or second degree murder. He should probably get manslaughter or some sort of negligent homicide charge. But let due process work it out. Black Lives Matter cannot keep holding our judicial system hostage because they want to see white cops go to prison because they don't agree with the fact that they were abiding by the legal procedures. So the real problem here isn't, and I posted this as well, the real problem here is not the fact that the officers are getting away with murder, because they're not getting away with murder. The officers, okay, the police are just following orders handed down to them by the politicians you and I elected. So before we start pointing the finger, we really need to take a look at who their bosses are. Those are the real problems. Who's the mayor in Brooklyn Center? Because the mayor controls the police department. Who's the chief of police? Well, we know he's already resigned, sadly. We know that the police officer already resigned, which I thought was a horrible idea. I think it shows weakness within the police department. I don't think they should. And it also shows that they think they're guilty. They should have stayed on. They should have fought this thing. If they knew they were right, they should have fought. If it was a genuine accident, they should have stayed on the police force, unless the police force fired the female officer, unless the mayor fired Gann. Maybe they were threatened. Maybe they were told, hey, if you don't resign, we're firing you. To be honest, I would have held my ground and I would have rather been fired than resigned. Because if I was fired, that would have told you I believe in myself. I believe it was an accident. So I think it was a very weak move for both the chief of police and the police officer to resign. But then again, we don't know. They may not have had a choice. So I want to remind everybody that the police are just following orders. In all of these cities across America, they're following orders handed down to them by the politicians that you elected. So if you have a problem, who's the mayor of that city? That's the person that we need to be pointing the finger at. That's where police reform starts. So we need to take a hard look at who these bosses are and really try to get to the bottom of what the government officials, what the legislators, what the lawmakers are allowing in the first place, because that's where it all starts. So back to DeSantis, it's great to see that he's saying, cut the shit. We're not allowing this in my own backyard. I don't care. So Ron DeSantis said Thursday that he will approve an anti-riot bill that would impose harsher criminal penalties on violent protesters once finished. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that they're going to lay down the law. Let's take a look at exactly what's going on here. So he said Thursday he's going to approve an anti-riot bill. Florida Senate already approved HB 1 in a 23-17 vote, mostly along party lines. So that's great. They've already approved it. And DeSantis is now going to be 100% in favor of this bill. The legislation strikes the appropriate balance of safeguarding every Floridian's constitutional rights. This is wealth. So the legislation strikes the appropriate balance of safeguarding every Floridian's constitutional right to peacefully assemble while ensuring that those who hide behind peaceful protest to cause violence in our communities will be punished. That's the message the governor is sending. Further, the legislation ensures that no community in the state engages in defunding the police. I mean, Ron DeSantis just wins. He wins so hard. This guy, he's against defunding the police. Further, this legislation ensures that no community in the state engages in defunding the police. Isn't it sad that we actually need a Republican governor to come out and actually lay down a mandate that guarantees the police won't be defunded? I mean, this is where we're at with this country right now. This is the level of insanity that we've now come to, that we need Republican governors banning mask mandates to restore freedom, that we need governors to ban defunding the police to restore law and order, that we need governors to ban violent rioting. We need an anti-riot bill now in the United States of America. And it's only happening in Republican states. It's not happening in Democratic states. This is the scary part. And this is why people are leaving Democratic states in droves. This is why they are moving down south to Republican red states. But I want to reassure all of you right here in New York State, and there's a lot of viewers that follow me here in New York State, that the tide is turning, that we have a few key Republican governor candidates for 2022. And if you didn't see my post yesterday, I posted online some breaking news. I've recently joined up. I'm not going to go into too much, but we've decided to stay right here in New York and fight. I had a phenomenal meeting yesterday, and I cannot wait for all of you to see what's in store for New York State. I've teamed up with some very influential and high-profile public figures. We're going to get it done, people. We're going to get Cuomo out. Keep the faith. Stay tuned. 2022, here we come. I'll reveal more, but I'm actually meeting with one of the candidates this weekend. I'll tell you all about it next week.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.